if I use just one example, you mentioned that I think one of these claimants used the word saints and martyrs in other religions. Well, that's very interesting. Once again, we have the translation. I have seen on network news shows when they talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, they often talk about their holy cities, and they'll talk about people who are on their pilgrimages to various different Mohammedan saints or martyrs. They use those expressions. I think they use those expressions because whatever the Arabic, and I assume it would be an Arabic term that these people, that properly describes these people, they translate into English as saint and martyr. That doesn't mean that the CNN reporter is accepting these people as saints and martyrs. I'm saying once again, when we deal with problems with translations from some other language, then maybe into Latin and then maybe into English, there's a very good chance of equivalences in the language giving the implication that we have equivalences in meaning when we don't.
Do you mind if I respond to that?
Well, let me just...
Okay, go ahead.
Exclamation point, please. What I'm saying is my position has been that for an awful long time, most of the Vatican has been corrupt. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the official translations are slanted, distorted, and simply fabricated, and that this is done for the sole purpose of attacking the church, quote unquote, from the inside. And I do not find it at all inconceivable or irrational or insane that we are not getting, in many cases, if not the vast majority, actually what was originally said.
Well, that is insane because, number one, he teaches it in his encyclical Ut Unum Sint, which you can look at the Latin online. Okay, it's also officially translated by the Vatican. It's not like his enemies are translating this. He says, quote, "These saints come from all the churches and ecclesial communities," referring to Protestant churches, "which gave them entrance into the communion of salvation." He says it in tons of speeches. We have a whole list of the quotes, which are all published in his newspaper. On and on and on. For instance, in his general audience, 1999, he talks about how the Orthodox and Protestants have martyrs. He talks about we have a common martyrology in Ut Unum Sint. He talks about how the saints and martyrs, the ecumenism of the saints and martyrs in his speech to the schismatic Caricon II in November 9th, 2000. But if you want to insist upon the Latin, we could look at the Latin in Vatican II and in its decree on non-Christian religions. And we quote this in our book, where it says in Latin basically almost word for word the opposite of what Pope Eugene IV defined at the Council of Florence. And we quote this, that the Council of Florence defined that the Church rejects, anathematizes, and condemns whoever holds opposing or contrary views. Okay? And the word it used to say rejects, that the Church rejects, such as the Jews who do not believe in Christ, is reprobat. Okay? It's from the verb reprobo. Well, Vatican II used a form of the exact same verb in Nostra Aetate number 4 to say that the Jews should not be presented as having been rejected. Okay, it says reprobati. And so the Jews should not be presented as having been rejected, whereas the Catholic Church teaches that the Jews are rejected because they disbelieve in the Lord. So it teaches exactly the opposite of the Catholic Church. And if you're right, which you're not, your position's heretical, but if you're right, then that means that the Catholic Church has contradicted itself, because Vatican II is the teaching of your, quote, popes.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. Am I supposed to go now?
Yeah, so, I mean, you can respond, or... Oh, another thing I wanted to say in reference to what you were saying about the Lutherans. So you admit that the guy who comes to you and says, Vin, I want to become a Catholic, but I disbelieve in the Council of Trent. I believe in faith alone. He can or cannot become Catholic?
Cannot.
Okay, well, then you'd have to admit that Benedict XVI can't be Catholic believing that same thing.
No. It's quite a bit of difference to not become something or not still be in something. A man without a hand cannot enter the Army of the United States because it's simply a physical disqualification. But I myself saw a career sergeant who had a hook instead of his hand because they made an exception once he was in the service to allow him to stay in the service in a non-combat role. And it's the same thing. Police officers cannot enter police departments when they're 40 years old. However, they can stay in the department when they're 40 years old. There's a difference between remaining in somewhere and gaining entrance to somewhere. Okay? I draw that distinction.
Oh, can I respond?
Oh, sure.
That doesn't work at all because there are no exceptions to being able to reject the Catholic faith. Okay, it's not like one person in the church. If you're joining the Catholic Church, you can't reject dogmas. But if you've been there for a while, you can see dogmas and reject them. No, that's an absurd, crazy argument. That you're saying that Benedict XVI, he's allowed to know about the Council of Trent and say it doesn't apply. But this guy who meets you, he's bound by the Council of Trent. That's ridiculous. No, if one of them can be in the church rejecting the Council of Trent, such as Benedict XVI or John Paul II, then the other guy could enter the church holding the same position. You can't say that one of them is a heretic, but the other isn't, if they're both clearly denying the Council of Trent. And so that's why the position is completely illogical and heretical.
A person can't be a heretic until he becomes a Catholic. That's my position.
He can't be a heretic in what? I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Say, a person cannot become a heretic until he is first a Catholic. Otherwise, he's simply a non-believer. A Jew rejects the Council of Trent, I'm sure, that is a religious Jew, if there are such things, simply because he rejects the entire structure of Catholicism. What I'm saying is there's a difference between a person rejecting things from the inside and a person rejecting things from the outside. Jeez, I'm sorry here. My dog decided to walk by.
That's all right. Do you want to just take a break?
No, we're all right.
All right.
Allow me to say.
I need to take a quick break.
Oh, sure. What do you want to do? You want to disconnect? You want to hang up?
And then I'll call you back.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Hang on a second. Go ahead.
Okay.